Hey guys, so it's a really nice day. So I went to work outside, so I did. I hope your days are going great. I hope it's as nice a day for you as it is for me. Um, Today I wanted to talk about something fun. So, like, a lot of people ask me, what's a really good way to take big risk or to implement big change? And my answer is, I think, great, which is why I want to share it with you. So, you can do incredibly big things in your life, quickly even, but you have to be able to do them in a way where you don't tire, right? So persistence is probably your best asset when it comes to making big change. And I would say the number one way to cultivate persistence is to live your life in what I would call a flow state. So a flow state is everyone's been in them, and to recognize that you're in one is something along the lines of time's flying by. Like you're just so in whatever you're doing that you almost don't exist. It's just the problem and interacting with it, and that's a flow state. And so when you're in a flow state, you're fully engaging your attention and your focus, and it's a very powerful state to be in. And so living in that flow state is a life-changing thing. And there are many things that pull you out of that flow state, and that's okay. And coming to terms and accepting that that's going to happen is fine. But pulling that to taking and making big change, you want to be able to drip on yourself. So I'm going to use a diet because it's a really easy example. So let's say that you find this diet, or that you educate yourself enough to a point where you're saying, okay, I wanna implement this, and you obviously know that means you have to cut out certain foods and you have to add in other foods. And so let's just say, for sake of the example, that you have to cut out some foods you really like, and you've been eating for years and years and years, and you have to add in foods that you really don't like and that you've never liked. Well, how do you do that? If you visualize your diet as one big algorithm, right? And it's always changing and fluctuating based off what you put in and moving through your system and then coming out. Anytime that you find the energy to push yourself towards that diet, towards that new diet, you're slowly moving your algorithm from what it is now to the algorithm of the new diet. And you don't have to succeed always. And that's, I think, the biggest misconception of people when it comes to implementing big change. And the reason being is because we live the way we do, and especially with diet, there's never a point of success and there's never a point of failure, right? So you're never going to not be able to change. You're your only limiting factor. And because you're always going to be able to change, there's never going to be a point where, like, oh, you failed. You're never going to be able to get into this diet. And so taking the stress of a point of failure off the table is huge. You're going to slip up. Everybody does. It's okay to do it. Eventually it will become easier not to do, and eventually you will have not done it in so long that you will perceive you never slipping up. But just like with any hobby, you're going to make mistakes at first, and that's a part of everything. It's fine. Forgive yourself for being human. That's a huge thing. But there's never a point of failure. So as you find the energy to implement these things into your diet, just like at first, maybe just do it for breakfast. Like if you're really struggling and you really want to do this, but it's just so hard, just do it for breakfast at first. And then after that becomes more normal, do it for breakfast and dinner. Or maybe in intermittent fasting's case, go from a 14-hour eating window to a 12-hour eating window. Make small steps. Just find small things. And then if you put energy into those small things, they become easier. And you can do this type of small maneuvering across a wide array, right? So let's say you don't work out, you have a bad diet, you don't self-educate, you don't meditate, and just, all these things that you want to change about yourself. Well, if you find the energy throughout the day to just try a little bit in each of them, so maybe you meditate one time a week, one time every 2 weeks. You can do that. It's just small energy. It's just asking small things of yourself. And maybe you try your new diet for breakfast, or maybe you decide to cut out just sugar instead of sugar and carbs and meat and everything else that maybe you want to cut out. And then in education sense, you just find, instead of watching like a drama, maybe you watch a documentary. So it's like little tiny steps. And you can compound these little tiny steps across a wide array of things you want to change at the same time. And let's say you slip up. Let's say, 75% of the things I wanted to change, I found the energy to do for today, and this 25% I just don't want to. Well, I'm not going to say that's okay, but excuse yourself. You're human. It's going to happen. So don't let 25% of failure make failure for the rest of the 100% for everything else, because there's never a point of failure. That being said, once you compound these, they become easier and easier and easier, and then you just constantly drip. You just constantly put a little bit more energy into it until you just find yourself, having the diet that you want, exercising the way that you want to, being an avid self-educator in this case, being able to meditate, all of these different things that you want to change about yourself, you can now do. This also extrapolates to business and career and call it lifestyle changes. So let's say, I want to travel the world, and I don't have any money, and I don't know how to do it and whatnot. Well, first, try traveling around you. Try seeing if maybe you have an affinity for backpacking. Make it a game to see how cheaply that you can get from point A to point B. And what works for you. Sometimes people are far more comfortable with traveling by train than they ever thought they were. Or maybe you see it's like, if I worked on a yacht, I could get from point A to point B and get paid for it. And then it just becomes a little dripping of, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? How do I do that? And one thing that I've always been fascinated with, and I love, is the fact that the brain, the reason that humans are such a dominant species on Earth is because we're so good at solving problems. Our brain is an amazing problem solver. It's an incredible problem solver. And if you keep giving your brain a problem, eventually it will present you a solution. It's kind of like the law of attraction, which I think I'm going to do a video on. But the way that you keep things in mind, your brain finds a solution. And once your brain has a solution, it becomes super easy to implement. There's a quote that I say at my fund a lot, and that is, solutions are easy. Becoming intimate with a problem is hard. Solutions jump out at you when you are really, really intimate with how something works. So if the problem is you want to travel, or you want to have more friends, or whatever, if you become super intimate with that problem of, okay, well, how am I going to travel? And these are what I need, these are what I can get away with not having, this is what I could do better on. Or when it comes to friends, like, I want friends, but I want these types of friends. And maybe I'll have to compromise, and I'll only get 50% of what I want at first, or 25% of what I want first, to cultivate that social ability. Your mind finds a way. Everybody's a genius. Everybody. And your mind will find a way to solve the problem. So, two things. With big changes, keep at it. Be persistent. Don't kill yourself. You know what I mean? Don't try so hard for a week and a half, and then you're just out of energy. You're burnt out. You're done. So you're just going to revert right back. Try slowly. Anytime you can find just a little bit to add into that scenario, you do it. And eventually, you'll just find yourself being what you wanted. Second thing is, if you keep it in mind, if you keep the problem in mind, your brain will solve the problem. You don't even have to solve the problem. Your brain will just find things and be like, oh, that makes sense. And then away you go. And so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that today. It's something that I really enjoy doing. And it's something that's super easy to implement once you get the hang of it. And best of luck in all of your big changes. Have a good day.